Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. It's Sunday night. Get in the comments whether you're watching live or not. We're ready for a big show. It's going to get hot. Ten Hag calls for calm. I call for you to back your manager. This is not a PR stunt. This is a reality bite. I stand by my match reaction. I stand by the concerns, but I also think that it's almost becoming a little bit over dramatic in the claims. It's almost like now is the time to get ahead of the game on the Ten Hag out bandwagon. I've seen Turbo Prats talking about it because they probably think it's a way to create views for their videos and stuff like that. But it's just ridiculous. And we'll get into that. What I do want to get from you, whether you're watching live or get in the comments if you're watching not live, what are your concerns about United at the moment? Because I'd like to pull that together this week and start to look at the bigger issues of what our possibilities are this season and why it might not be the season we want it to be. Also, David Ornstein has come out and said that there'll be an announcement around Mason Greenwood tomorrow. Get ready for that. What could it be? We'll talk about that as well. I also want to talk about the Mason Mount situation and how he's unfairly being singled out and written off way too soon, despite subpar performances. Lots of other things to get into as well. Remember, we were talking about this morning and we ran out of time. We wanted to talk about Anthony and Rashford and Bruno. So we'll dive into that because I think there is really a mentality issue at Manchester United. And I think one of the biggest problems is he can't trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. I.e., he can't clear the deadwood to make the squad look better. And that's a key thing we're going to talk about as well. But as you can see, Manscaped are sponsoring the show. You can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TUS. The link is in the video description, or you can scan the QR code next to me with your camera phone and you could get this. I've literally just used it. If you saw me this morning, I'd had quite a heavy bit of stubble. In 30 seconds, I was down to this. Clean shaven bridge with a bit of stubble on setting 1. They've got 10 settings of lengths. That it's really quick, it's really powerful. They've just released this in the last month. It's the Manscaped beard trimmer. They do the lawnmower for down there, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. They do the weed whacker for up your nose. Now they do the facial one as well. It's a beauty. It's an absolute beauty. Fantastic products. That's what Manscaped do. Links in the description. Scan the QR code, 20% off. Delivered to your door free with 20% off. Free delivery. 20% off. Links in the description. Big shout out to Manscaped. So let's get straight into this. You know what? There's always going to be a match reaction from every Man United fan who gives a shit. And Ross says problems equaled midfielders, owners, strikers, and sales. And I think it's a great place to start, Ross. And we're going to delve into that. But I don't know what everybody else thinks. I feel that my opinion about United is my opinion. I don't intend to infiltrate other people's thoughts. I don't intend to impose my opinions on you. I suppose naturally we've got a massive community and I present shows, so obviously I admit that I can set the tone for the conversations we're going to have. But ultimately, there's many of you in the live chat. There's many of you listening. There's many of you who watch it not live and get your comments as well and have your say. And people read those. That's why you see when you come back to the video when it's not live, you'll see the top comments with loads of likes and loads of replies because people read them and want to interact. And that's what it's all about. But what I will always admit is that straight after a game, during a game, even the morning after a game, I'm pissed off if we've lost a game. And I'm overcritical. Doesn't mean I'm wrong, but I'm overcritical. And then after about 24 hours, I start to get tired of some of the criticism because it goes beyond it's the first few hours after a bad result and people have highlighted some key issues. The midfield is imbalanced. We're making silly defensive errors and we're not creating enough chances. That was United all through pre-season. And it's continued into the season. The midfield's been overrun, we don't create enough chances, and we're making silly defensive errors. This has been the key to United's pre-season and the start to the season. But what I really have to call out, and look, Eric Ten Hag has asked for calm, he's asked for patience, he's confident he'll turn things around. But I would ask for calm as well. I mean, before the Chelsea game, even during the Chelsea game, I did a watch-along on That's Football, and people were saying Pochettino's only been at Chelsea for 2 months and he's already got them playing better football than Ten Hag has after 12 months. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not on a horse, but whoa. Wait a minute. Did Manchester United not finish third and also win a trophy in Ten Hag's first season? We've had a really bad start to the season. And I completely comply with the fact that Gary O'Neill had 1 week with Wolves and played us off the park, and Ange hasn't been long at Spurs and they deserve to beat us. But we can't just start saying, oh, you know, Pochettino's he's got about £800 million spent in 12 months. Like, and we had a good season last year. I think some of it's going over the top. It's almost like Ten Hag started his job this summer. He took over the worst United side in Premier League history. He's made major changes, removing major players. He's got the worst owners you could hope for. He's got players who refuse to leave, and yet he still took us to third and won a trophy and got us back in the Champions League. It's not a great start to the season. It's 3 points from 6, and we're saying it's not great, and we should do because we're United. But it's certainly not as dramatically bad as some people are trying to say. And I think we need to move past the Spurs disappointment and have a bit of a reality check. I don't want Ten Hag out, says King, but you've got to question the Mount and Anthony signings. Very worrying. The only way to play Mount is to play a diamond, which I don't see us doing, says King. And one of the biggest concerns has got to be how we're still not playing the Ten Hag way. Yet other managers get their ideas across relatively quickly. Has to be players not being able to adjust, says Geordie. Well, can I say thank you very much to King and Geordie, who've done 2 early super chats there. That's really what I want the show to become. We will talk about this Greenwood story, but I want it to be a bit of a, you know, well, it is a community bit. I want it to be a bit of a forum show tonight where people actually start throwing in intelligent stuff like that we can debate and really get into. And I think that the key point that Geordie makes there is, and also King as well, about Anthony and Mount. But I think this is a really great point. Why is it that United are not playing a decent brand of football? And as Ruth says, why is there no identity, no idea and style? Why are we not fit? I spoke about this morning. Why are Wolves and Spurs fitter than us and sharper than us? And I go back to I can't remember the pre-season game. People in the chat will let us know. There was a game in pre-season where Erik Ten Hag basically came out and said, the players aren't doing what I asked them to do. He said that. I can't remember the game. He said that. And was that not now a warning to the reality of where we are here? When a Manchester United manager has finished third and been to 2 cup finals and won a trophy, and then on pre-season he says the players aren't doing it. It was after Dortmund, thanks Kel. And when he comes out after a game in pre-season and says the players aren't doing what he's asked, at that point I was thinking, that's a bit of a worry. That is a bit of a worry. What is it in this squad that they're not responding to the manager in season 2? Is it a mental weakness? Is it laziness? Is it mutiny? Is it unhappiness? What is it that, and it was the first team that was playing exactly, what is it in that team that is causing that problem with Erik Ten Hag at the moment? And I think that is something that only the players know and only Ten Hag knows at the moment. And that is going to be the fundamental key. Now, it could be something as simple as they don't like the setup of the team. They don't like the transfers. Maybe Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford are not happy as senior members in the team. There's a senior management team in that team. Varane's there, Casemiro's there, Bruno's there, Rashford's there. Maybe Luke Shaw's there. Maybe that collection of players, none of which are actually playing well apart from Varane, maybe they're not happy. Maybe they're not happy and maybe Ten Hag's not happy. And maybe they've sat down and said, this is a bloody joke. We worked our arse off last season. We played 3 games a week for 8 months, tiredness. And we come back from pre-season, there's no striker. You've bought a 20-year-old who looks really promising, but we're all in our late 20s and early 30s. We want to win, you know, if you're Varane and Casemiro, you've got 1 or 2 years left maybe. We want to go and win now, and where's the ambition from the football club? So maybe the players have come into this season mentally not in the place they thought they were going to be. Maybe they're not optimistic. Maybe they're not happy. That goes back to the Glazers, of course. But there's something not right. And I'd be very interested to see what some of your comments are about it. But I would say, if I was a Man United player from last season, I've worked my bloody arse off. I've got us into the Champions League. I've won a trophy. You've had a very, very short break. You come back for pre-season. You're off to America. You look at the squad and you go, I don't like it. I don't like the squad. I mean, could you honestly, actually, here's a big statement for you. Is United's squad this season better than the team of last season. And the fact that we sit there and have to think about it means that the progression hasn't been what it should be. Now, I would say, admittedly, Onana, the way that he plays the ball out from the back is better than De Gea. Is he a better goalkeeper than De Gea? Mason Mount in the midfield has made the midfield imbalanced, whether it's a long-term solution or not. At the moment, the midfield is not as good. You're not going to like this, but Casemiro, Fred and Bruno is a better midfield combination than Casemiro, Mount and Bruno. It's true. The front three, with Rashford not on the wing and up front, is not as good as Rashford on the left, Weghorst and Antony. Because Rashford up front, Antony and Garnacho, you haven't got Rashford in his best position. So you could argue that the best 11 at the moment is not as good, certainly not as balanced, as the best 11 we had last season. And that maybe is something that's playing on the player's mind after a hard season last year, that they're not overjoyed by the progression of the summer. And maybe Ten Hag feels the same. And maybe the team is coming into this season just not in the headspace they thought it was going to be, and that reflects on the sale. Maybe the lack of sale is causing a problem. And people are absolutely correct in the chat to say they're paid professionals who play for Manchester United. There's a standard here and they have to do better. And I completely subscribe to that view. But what we have to accept after 2 games is that's not happening. Something is going wrong. So we can all sit here and moan about, wow, they're Man United players, that's not an excuse, Mark. But there is a reason, whether it's an excuse. There is a reason for the lack of fitness, the lack of sharpness and the lack of identity, and also the lack of charisma, the lack of desire in that team in the first 2 games. You've got, if somebody's got a broken leg, you know how to fix it. There is something wrong with that team at the moment, and we need to fix it very, very quickly. How do we get around the Mount problem, says Lewis. Does he need to go on the wing? Does Bruno need to play deeper? Can we not play Mount? It'd be good, but how, says Louis. Welcome to Members Club, Erwin. Not as bad as last season's start, but we still concede lots of chances. If we play against the clinical team, we'll get thrashed, says Big Zed. Evening, Mark. Hope you're well. There's a parasite within the team, in my opinion. My thoughts are it's someone popular, influencing the application of the squad, says Mike. And we are not playing good football. I've not seen no changes since Ollie, says Paulson. I think that when I look at the United side at the moment, and a lot of people will talk about this, Mason Mount, I think Mason Mount unfairly is being sort of held up as the problem, and I think he's not the problem. I think he is a problem, but he's not the problem. And I think he's become. This is always dangerous, and this might shock people because I actually like Mason Mount, but I will not be a hypocrite. He is a problem in the team, but he is not the problem. And it reminds me very, very, and I never thought I'd do this for an English player because English players are protected. They're like rhinos. They're a protected species, But the reality is, Mason Mount, we're in danger of doing something very silly as a fan base. We are in danger of pinning everything on one player, and that is so silly. Like last season, the media, certain ex-players, certain of you would never shut up about David De Gea. You never shut up about him. David De Gea this, David De Gea that. Look at that clip. Every time he played a pass, I knew it was going to be in a compilation. He won the Golden Glove. We had the best home record in the league, and we finished 3rd. And everything that was wrong with last season, if you listen to certain people and certain journalists and certain media outlets, was David De Gea. And I always said, I don't actually think he's a problem, but he's certainly not the problem, even if he is a problem. And I would say again, very early doors, how can Mason Mount be the problem for Manchester United? Like many of you would talk about Antony, you talk about Martinez, you talk about Bruno, you talk about Rashford. Garnacho's had a bit of stick as well. Casemiro's had a bit of stick. The right back's had a bit of stick. Mason Mount is a problem, but is he any more of a problem than numerous other problems within that football club at the moment? And I think we've got to be very careful. Let the media do that. Let the journalists do that. We shouldn't do that. We're very naive as a fan base if we pin this all onto Mason Mount. Because I'm telling you now, it wasn't De Gea's problem. De Gea wasn't the problem last year, and Mason Mount's not the problem this year. It might be an issue to resolve, but has Onana being a ball-playing goalkeeper, made Man United a better side. Has he bollocks? That was never going to happen. I said it wasn't going to happen, and it's not going to happen. Onana is not going to make Man United a brilliant footballing side. He can be a component in it, but lots of other things have to happen as well. Onana passing the ball into Varane or Martinez and then passing it into the midfield and the ball breaking down, it doesn't matter how good Onana is. Onana played a brilliant ball to Garnacho last night. We nearly scored, but it doesn't. He can't make us play great football. So Mason Mount is an issue, but is he any more of an issue than Anthony on the right wing, than Garnacho on the left wing, than Rashford playing up front, than Bruno at number 10, than Casemiro getting overrun, than Martinez and Luke Shaw not being match sharp? Is he any more of an issue than them? Is everybody else around Mason Mount playing brilliant and he's the reason we're losing games? We are good enough to carry a bad Mason Mount performance if everyone else is doing their job. Absolutely. Absolutely. But lots of other people are not doing their job at the moment, and that's the bigger issue. Yes, you can talk about whether Mason Mount's going to be a good signing or not. I'm happy to have that conversation. But it's almost like some people think he is the only problem in that team, and I don't think that's the case. Personally, I think it's the profile of player that we're trying to play as the number 8. Mason Mount is not used to playing that position. He's not used to playing deep. He's not used to picking up runners. And he's not used to tackling as much as you have to do that. I would argue, when we battered Spurs last year with Fred, I would argue that yesterday, if Fred had played instead of Mason Mount, it would have been a very different game. And I'd stand by that. My fear is that the problem is that the players have their feet under the table now, like they always have. The first season, everyone was trying to get approval from Ten Hag. Now they're getting comfortable again, says Luster. Problem is our attackers play for themselves and not the team, says Stati. Mark, Liverpool play with McAllister, Gakpo and Szoboszlai and still somehow make it work. I think Mount, Bruno and Casemiro doesn't work, but surely it should be playing better than this. We need a 6, says Tejaz. And Tej, I appreciate the comment, but I think that's a bit over the top as well. I watched Liverpool against Chelsea and Liverpool looked vulnerable at times. And they've beaten Bournemouth at home. I mean, it's no vindication that Liverpool have got the balance right. How can Ten Hag tactically play a cam with Bruno giving ball away like a practice game with 31-year-old Casemiro, the only one in the midfield, says Ankit. And my biggest concern is that Avram is an arsehole and he's still screwing with the club I love, says Dean. Probably comment of the night. Teji, welcome to the members. Thank you very much for your super chat there. Yeah, thank you very much. So, look, I just think, I think that we've got Brighton and Arsenal in our next 2 games after Forest on Saturday. They are going to be, we've got 1 game to try and find some system. If we walk into Arsenal and Brighton with no system and no fitness and no sharpness, we will get battered like a fish. It's going to happen. So he's going to have to make changes or he's going to have to get more out of that team against Forest. We're going to have to see fluidity, system and pattern. Now, Rasmus Højlund is massively important, but so is the next few days in the transfer window. I genuinely think that United need to move heaven and earth to get Amrabat in this week. It's very clear that Scott McTominay probably would have done a better job than Mount, but he didn't rate him. He didn't even bring McTominay on for Mount. He brought Eriksen on. So he needs a player that can sit in next to Casemiro with some energy. Because what I'm seeing this season, and I'm sure a lot of you are seeing it as well, is I'm seeing midfields with 2 real workhorses in there. We saw it with Enzo Fernandez today with Conor Gallagher. Obviously, West Ham are going to do that anyway. We've seen it with Wolves against us. We saw it with Spurs yesterday with Sarr and Basuma. People are packing their midfield with 2, sometimes 3 real engines, real athletes in there. Well, Bruno and Mount are not that. They're not that. So what I would be doing if I was Ten Hag, and he hasn't got Fred anymore, I'd be moving heaven and earth to get Amrabat in this week for the next game. So that when you play Arsenal, he's up to speed. And obviously, you've got to get Rashford on the left and Rasmus Højlund up front. Look, Højlund might be very rusty. He might take some time to adjust, but you've got to go with it. Because if you don't go for it, then we're going to be in big problems. Yesterday's performance was poor, but first half there was a massive difference compared to Wolves, and there were moments that would decide the result, says Mac. But you know what, Mac? Even if we get the penalty, and it should have been a penalty, even if Bruno scores the goal, and he should have scored the goal, at 2-0 up, who's to say that we wouldn't have been knackered in the second half anyway, and Spurs would have got a draw? I don't think you can say that the first half was so positive that we can walk away from that game and go, everything would have been fine. We fell off a cliff in the second half in relation to energy and desire. And that, at 2-0 away from home, I still think Spurs probably would have come back. Teji, welcome to Members Club. Can you, Beth, Ricky and Faz make a poll on your favourite all-time United 11 and we vote for the one we agree with the most? I'd love to do that. Good idea, Bjorn. Thank you very much. So, look, my overarching feeling here is, I talk about poll. I just want to do this as well. And can I just say, if you're not watching live, please do get in the comments with what your concerns and positives are at the moment, or just general feeling about United, because that fits in with what I'm about to say here. Is Ten Hag the man for United's future? Yes or no? Is Ten Hag the man for United's future? Yes or no? Because for me, it's an absolutely resounding yes. And I will get into an argument with anybody who goes against that. I do not think that you can go from everybody universally agreeing that Ten Hag's first season was almost miraculous to take us to third place, to win us a trophy, with the lack of signings in January, the ridiculous schedule of games, the injuries, Weghorst as the striker. To do what he did in season 1 was incredible. We've won one game badly. We've lost one game badly, and people are starting to say Ten Hag's not the right man. They're starting to begin the Ten Hag out movement, really. I find that incredible. I find that absolutely incredible, and there is absolutely no substance to it. It is a bad start to the season. Absolutely. It is unacceptable. The fitness and sharpness of the team, that's the thing that irritates me the most. Why the hell are Wolverhampton Wanderers and Spurs fitter than us? I don't get that. I don't agree with some of his tactics, but it's 2 games. And I do not agree in any shape or form that now is the time to start questioning Erik Ten Hag and thinking he's not the guy. I feel like he's banged his head a little bit. I don't think he's talking like the man who was talking last season. I think some of the excuses are weak. I think some of the conversations and quotes are strange. But I'm guaranteeing you now, don't know why I did the wink. I'm guaranteeing you now, something is going wrong at that football club. It is. It clearly is. It's impacting the players, and I think it's impacting the way Ten Hag is talking. I don't know what it is. But something's not going right on at that football club at the moment. Now, it could be as simple as Ten Hag wants Mason Greenwood back and he's not going to get him. I don't know whether that's true. It's completely unfair to predict it. It could be the other way. It could be that Ten Hag doesn't want Mason Greenwood back and he's had it forced upon him. Who knows? It could be nothing to do with Mason Greenwood. It could be to do with the sale. It could be to do with the fact that, he hasn't been given the players that he wanted. I don't know, but there's clearly something not right at the moment. The fact that Erik Ten Hag never gets his first choice transfers could be a factor in how disjointed we are, says Mike. Mark, also, Martinez's lack of pace in the last games is worrying. And Kit, Martinez doesn't worry me at all. He's not fit. Glazers as owners are out of their league. They are poor compared to the other owners. They are not good enough. Therefore, it carries throughout the team, says James. And if Ten Hag's not the right man, there is no right man, says James. You know what, as well? Why is Erik Ten Hag sacrificing Rashford at striker instead of anyone else, says Jordan? Look, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. I absolutely agree with you there that Ten Hag does odd things. Why does Bruno go on the wing to accommodate McTominay at number 10? I don't know. But there's one thing I really want to say about this, about Ten Hag. The mic drop moment is coming. And that mic drop moment is this. Some of you have been spun this summer. And some of us kept our feet on the ground. The ones who got spun by the irresponsible people out there in the fan base who, for some reason, maybe they're being told to do it by people within the club, but for some sinister reason, some people in our fan base manipulated other people in our fan base to believe that this summer transfer window was uniquely good, that we were getting business done early and the business was good. And I never sat for it. Some of you never sat for it. And this is the biggest issue. And this is what's going to blow the doors off on this whole Ten Hag ain't good enough. This is the beginning end of Ten Hag. Ten Hag's not the right guy. The reason some people are thinking that is because they, unfortunately, have been brainwashed by these prats who tried to sell that this was a good summer window. The Murta Madness Brigade, I call them. That this summer was exceptional. That this summer we were finally seeing progress. That this summer we were getting our business done early. Let's break that down. First of all, Ten Hag wanted Victor Osimhen or Harry Kane, proven goal scorer, to come into a team that had finished third and take us to the next level. He didn't get a proven top-class striker. He also wanted, expected and assumed we were going to get Kim Min-jae because we spent most of last season flirting with him and scouting him. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money and Bayern Munich did, and he went to Bayern Munich. So he didn't get Kim Min-jae, which he expected, and he didn't get a world-class ready-to-go striker, which he expected. He wanted Rasmus Højlund as well as an up-and-coming striker, but he didn't get the Kane or the Osimhen. He didn't get the Kim Min-jae. He couldn't get the Declan Rice or the Casido because United didn't have the money. He got Onana, which he wanted, and then he's ended up with a young striker in Højlund, Mason Mount, which he did want, and he still hasn't got the midfielder or the centre-back. So when you actually break it down and you look at the summer transfer window, he hasn't got a lot of what he wanted. And he's certainly not sold hardly anything of what he wanted to sell. But unfortunately, because there are people in this fan base who for some reason still want to be mouthpieces for the Glazers, we had this a period in July where people who have an influence on this fan base, journalists as well, started speaking very positively about a transfer window that wasn't actually as good as they were saying it was. They were trying to tell you that we'd had a really successful transfer window that was unlike any other, that we were ahead of schedule, getting our business done early and heading towards a good season. We'd bought a goalkeeper when we already had a good goalkeeper, but it was a transformative goalkeeper. But we had a good goalkeeper, so it was only going to change the way we played out from the back. It wasn't like we didn't have a good goalkeeper, it was a style thing. It wasn't a hole in the team, it was a stylistic change. We brought in an attacking midfielder who was slightly quicker than the one we already had in Eriksen. And then, right at the back end of the window, we brought in a 20-year-old striker who I really like, who was injured. So actually, when you look at this summer transfer window, what have we actually achieved? We've brought a goalkeeper in to replace a good goalkeeper who can play the ball out better than the other goalkeeper. We brought a quicker attacking midfielder to play out a position in Eriksen's position. And we bought a striker who's not actually fit yet. There are 3 signings, people. So it makes you quite scared that people in our fan base were genuinely thinking we're having a transformative, exciting, ahead of schedule transfer window that Erik Ten Hag will take us to the next level with. And when you break it down, it's really not been a very transformative summer transfer window. Mason Mount is just a quicker Eriksen. Onana is just De Gea who can pass out from the back. And Rasmus isn't even fit. So we've not actually changed. We've not actually solved any of the problems that we had at the end of last season. We needed to bring another centre-back in. We desperately needed somebody who can play next to Casemiro. And we needed a striker. And none of those positions have been filled as of yet because Rasmus isn't fit. We haven't got the midfielder and we haven't got the centre-back. So, you know, I go back to what the problem might be with Manchester United, and I say it's not been a bloody good transfer window. It really hasn't. And the sales have obviously compounded that because we've got players waiting to come to the club. I mean, Pavard and Amrabat would be here 2 weeks ago if United could have sold Donny and Maguire, but we can't do it. So you sort of, when you break it down, you can sort of see why some of the problems might be there and why the next 2 weeks, like the last 2 weeks of last summer transfer window, are going to be quite big, and the team will probably get better as the season goes on because we weren't ready for the start of the season. I don't know about the sharpness and the fitness though, because that's not about transfers, that's about coaching. Mark, why is he not playing Sancho at false 9 when he played him more than half of pre-season? Ankit, I can't tell you why he's not playing Jadon Sancho as a number 9, but what I can say is I don't think Jadon Sancho's a number 9. I watched him yesterday against Spurs. I don't think he played very well. I think his touch was off. I think he got physically knocked off the ball a few times. I don't think he's a number 9. I don't think he's a false number 9. I don't think he's the answer. I think when Martial came on, we played a lot better because he actually knows how to play the position. Pep's second season, he got Edison changing how he played from the back, says Desert. Desert, please never, ever, ever compare Manchester City with Manchester United, and never compare Pep's second season at Manchester City with Manchester United. Like, there's just no conversation there. There's just no comparison. Like, you are comparing a Ferrari with a go-kart with no wheels. Like, Manchester City, as much as it pains me to say it, they weren't born when Pep came. They'd already won league titles. They'd already spent hundreds of millions of pounds. They were already a well-run football club. There's just no conversation there. Am I wrong that McSauce was a striker as a kid? If he's staying, bang him up front in last season's Weghorst role, says Mike. Do you remember when you asked how long it would take for Bruno to be infected by the complacency? Has that happened to Martinez, Casemiro and Anthony? Says Stephen. The 21% on the poll is worrying. It's like the fan base switched off sometimes, says Alex. We would be better off and have spent less if we got Amrabat and Osman alone. We've also lost Fred for very little. It's been a terrible window, says Nate. Well, on the poll, is Ten Hag the man for United's future? 79% of you say yes. 21% of you say no. There is, unfortunate. I mean, look, this makes me. Oh, can I just say, by the way, this T-shirt, I got sent it by the Hairy Lemon pub in Dublin, which is my pub really, although I don't own it and I never will. But they just sent me some merch, and I love it. My favourite pub in the world in Dublin, and they sent me this lovely T-shirt. So big shout out to the Hairy Lemon pub. If you're ever in Dublin, get yourself in there. But I find this quite funny because there are people, you know these people in the fan base. I don't need to be stereotypical about what they are. If I tell you what they are, you can picture what they look like. They'll have a picture with their dog on Twitter. Very close relationship with their dog, probably. I mean, like taking it for a walk and stuff. But the reality is, we know these sort of people on Twitter. We know these sort of people in the fan base. They don't watch the United stand. They're just bitter and jealous about it. And they think we spend every hour of every show saying, get rid of this player, get rid of the manager, get rid of this. And we don't. We literally don't. I have said Mourinho out. I have said Ollie out. I have said Van Gaal out. I hope I never have to say Ten Hag out. I will do if it needs to be said. But I'm actually going to say this right now. The 70-80% of you that want Ten Hag to be the man for Man United, I firmly sit with you. The 20% that think Ten Hag's not the guy, this is something in the fan base that worries me, that I've observed. We're in a cycle. We're stuck in a cycle. And unfortunately, if you don't wake up, you'll get stuck in that cycle. It's the same cycle I just said there about these irresponsible journalists and, aggregator accounts who started in early July to say it was a good transfer window. They were being fed that by somebody, by the way, because it was loads of people at the same time. They were being fed that by someone. We're getting our business done early. We're having a good window. It was such a PR bullshit thing that people started to believe. And it's amazing how you can start to make people believe something that's not true. Now, with regards to United, we go through a cycle. We get a new manager. We get really excited. They spend a bit of money. We have a good first season. And then in the second season, things start to go wrong. And the movement against the manager starts in season 2. And by the end of season 2, it's not looking good, bruv. And then into season 3, they're sacked. Now, I think what's happening here is certain United fans, and it's probably not their fault, have become so indoctrinated into that pattern of year 1 positivity, year 2 the cracks, year 3 they're gone, that I think people are automatically falling into that. This is what's going to happen. And you can sort of understand it because it has happened 2 or 3 times before. What year 1's good, year 2 not so good, year 3 bad. And I think I think people are just assuming that's going to happen. Now, it could happen. The scary thing is it could happen because a lot of the reason that happens is because of the Glazers. The Glazers almost construct that 3-year cycle with new manager comes in, investment, manager gets Champions League football, shit summer, everyone else invests, we fall behind, 3rd year, less investment, sacking. It's by design, it's by ownership, but I don't think people should be jumping on Ten Hag at the moment when you actually look at the facts. Too many people think we've had a good window and Ten Hag is failing. I flip it the other way and say we've had an absolutely dreadful window and that is why Ten Hag is failing. I think this window's shit. I don't for 1 minute think Erik Ten Hag ended the season and said, I think it's a good idea if you buy me an injured 20-year-old to solve our goal-scoring problems. I don't think he thought that at all. I know we wanted Højlund. I knew we wanted him. I think he's going to be a really good player, but he was one for the future. He was a bit like Alvarez for Man City, but Ten Hag wanted his Haaland. That's what Ten Hag was trying to do. We wanted Højlund and a top-class striker, and Ten Hag expected that with a Qatari ownership. He ended up with a Glazer ownership that said, we can't afford you top-class striker, but we'll get you the backup young player that's coming through. Having Sancho at 9 is much better than sacrificing Rashford at that spot. The right 9 role can't be worse than what it's been to start, so switch it up, says Carter. I mean, look, you know, if you want to do that, that's fine, Carter. For me, the most obvious thing to do, and it's irrelevant now because Højlund's back and Martial's back, but what we should have done against Wolves and what we should have done against Spurs, and it was staring us in the face, is we should have played either Mount or Bruno as a false 9 and put Rashford on the left. That's what we should have done, but, you know, we're all geniuses in hindsight. Can we discuss how De Zerbi implemented his play style in less time with less resources? Ten Hag's talent ID needs questioning. Mount is his priority, says Arjun. Arjun, I hate to sit you down, but get comfy. Some people might disagree with me on this one, but that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Saying that De Zerbi has implemented his style on Brighton quicker than Ten Hag has implemented his style on Manchester United is remarkably naive, because Brighton Football Club has been a well-run football club for a number of years. Brighton Football Club has an identity and style of play for a number of years. Under Graham Potter, Brighton were revelled and admired by you and me and everyone else. They were a good footballing side. Basuma was a player that could play with his back to goal, receive the ball in tight spaces and play between the lines. Brighton have been a good football team for years. De Zerbi has developed it, but he took over a foundation of a team that played out from the back and was very good in the press. On top of that, Brighton have a recruitment team that buys players that are perfect for their system and has been doing it for years. And also, Brighton have a scouting system that top clubs like Arsenal and Manchester City are trying to replicate themselves. Brighton have an infrastructure and a style of play that was in place years before De Zerbi came in. So De Zerbi comes in, he's a very good coach, but the foundations for him to succeed are in place and the identity of the team is very similar. What you're not realising is Brighton scouted De Zerbi because he fitted the way they are. De Zerbi didn't look at Brighton and go, I'm this sort of manager, I'm going to make that club like that. They scouted him. He was a nobody, really. They brought him in because they're a well-run club. Man United brought Ten Hag in to a football club that had basically been playing counter-attacking, lazy football for 4 years. When was the last time United played high-press, intensity, possession football? Over a decade. Over a decade. And people are expecting Ten Hag to get Man United playing like Brighton in 12 months. We are endemically and fundamentally a counter-attacking, slow football team over the last decade. That's what we are. And people expect us to turn that around in 12 months. Never going to happen. Mark, Ten Hag repeatedly told us we would dominate the ball and there would be a style of play. Bruno's wasteful long balls, one moment miracles, says Ankit. Mistakes are our sanctuaries where we learn and grow, says Karan. Ten Hag is a progressive man and he would learn from his mistakes and move on. In Ten Hag we trust, says Karan. Look, I can't sit here tonight and say that Erik Ten Hag's going to be a success. And I can't say that he won't be a failure. But what I can say is that I'm very frustrated I don't like some of the things that are happening at the club, and I certainly don't like some of the performances. The fitness and sharpness is key for me. Some of the team selections are odd. I don't like Rashford out of position. I don't like Bruno out of position. I don't like the setup of the midfield. I don't like Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw inverting as fullbacks because I don't think they can do it. I don't like the lack of fitness of Martinez and Shaw. There's a lot of things about Anthony I don't like as well. But I still think Ten Hag is the right guy. And I do think that the overreaction is ridiculous. And what winds me up is when I'm sat there afternoon watching a game and saying, oh, Emery's only been at Villa for 7 months and he's already got them playing better than Manchester United. Oh, Pochettino's only been there 5 minutes and he's got them. Oh, no, they're losing to West Ham now. That tweet doesn't work. Delete it. And I just sit there and I go, fucking hell. We've lost 1 game this season. We played badly against Wolves, but we won. And last season we finished 3rd and won a trophy. What are people talking about? Like, this club, you can't on one hand say this club is run dreadfully, and then on the other hand say, I expect us to win the league with scintillating Man City style football. You know, it's just not going to happen, is it? It's not. We absolutely need change at the football club. And look, that brings me to the other point I wanted to talk about. Open heart surgery, says Jesus. That's exactly what Ralph Rangnick said. Mark, do you think the players also recognise the Glazers are horrible owners and plagues themselves? They are human at least. Love the show, says Joshua. Look, I can speculate. I'll give you 3 examples of things that would piss me off if I was a player at Man United. And you can relate this to school, university, college, work, family. Christmas with your family, right? Imagine Christmas is coming. You've all booked a lovely cottage, yeah? All the people are there that you want to be there, and then the relative that you can't stand has been invited and will be there. Are you going to feel as happy and positive and as content? You're not. So keep that in your mind, right? You worked your arse off last season, you expect a change of ownership, and you expect the new ownership to come in and be able to compete with the likes of Man City, Chelsea and Newcastle. You go all summer, nothing happens, you come back, it's the same as last year. Are you going to be motivated or demotivated? You're going to be demotivated. That's one potential reason. Second reason, within that squad, you've got a good set of players, but there's 3 or 4 players in there that really aren't good enough, need to be moved on so you can bring other players in. You come back from pre-season, those players are still there. You start the season, those players are still there and they've not been replaced. Are you going to be motivated or demotivated? Probably going to be a bit demotivated. So that's a second reason, potentially. Third reason, very serious reason, Mason Greenwood. You just don't want him in the dressing room. You don't want him as part of that team. You're told he's going to be back. Demotivated or motivated. Whether he comes back or not. There's 3 potential reasons there why this, to do with sale, to do with transfers, to do with the Greenwood saga. There's 3 potential reasons there that could demotivate players who are just human beings. There's probably another 10 reasons as well. But there's definitely something going wrong at United at the moment because the motivation is just not there. They look demotivated as players. They look defeated. They look demoralised. They look unenergised. They don't look right. Of course, it's not acceptable. But whether it's unacceptable or not, it's a reality. So why is it happening? And that's what we'd all love to know. David Ornstein has said that there will be announcements around Mason Greenwood coming in tomorrow. I don't know what that announcement's going to be. Obviously, a week ago, you would have said you thought he's coming back. Based on what was said towards the end of last week, you get the feeling that United might not do that. It's just a terrible. I mean, I think Richard Arnold should lose his job. I hate to say that, but I think he should. If he was a politician, he'd lose his job. Because the way he's dealt with it, whether you want Greenwood back or not, has been insensitive, arrogant, and completely out of touch with this fan base. Everybody I've spoken to over the last few days, whether it's journalists or fans, have said, whether they're pro-Greenwood coming back or not, that the way that Richard Arnold, as the CEO of that football club, has handled it is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I haven't seen or read any of the stuff that was apparently going to come out last week. but the rumours are it was literally going to be Man United telling you as a fan why you should welcome Mason Greenwood back because they've told you that's going to happen. I mean, imagine what a shitstorm that was going to cause. I mean, you think about certain groups and people who are so against it being told why they should be for it. I don't know how much truth is in that, but look, to me, it's not even about whether you want Greenwood back or not. I just think the way United have handled it is appalling. So I'll be very interested to see what they're going to do tomorrow. Realistically, if I'm being absolutely honest, I think one of the biggest factors has always been money. I think Simon Jordan was on about this the other day. He used to own Crystal Palace. He was saying, realistically, if you don't want Mason Greenwood to be part of the club, you pay him off. It's small change for a big Premier League club. You pay him off 10, 20 million pounds. He's not your problem anymore. He's gone. You pay his contract off. He's gone. You can do that. Well, I don't think United want to pay 10 million quid to anybody. So I would argue this was always going to be a financial decision anyway. What's going to happen tomorrow? Don't know. Absolutely don't know. But I've always felt it was a financial decision, and we'll see what happens, I suppose. Regardless of the signings, the players can't and won't play Ten Hag's style of player, and compounding that the club seems to be hampering Ten Hag at every turn, says Tom. Look, for me, Wan-Bissaka's been brilliant since Ten Hag came. His passing in tight spaces, ball control and direct players class doesn't get the recognition he deserves, says Art. Look, I think Wan-Bissaka has been a good player for Ten Hag, but if I'm being completely honest, I don't think he suits the system of the way that Ten Hag wants to play. I don't think he is a fullback that can drop into the midfield. Somebody made a great point in the watch-along yesterday. Most of the time when Wan-Bissaka tackles it, the ball goes dead. He's not the sort of player that tends to win the ball and keep possession. We give up possession every time he does a tackle. And it looks good, but it'll go for a throw-in or it'll go back to an opposition player. If you want to be a possession-based team, you want players who can win the ball back and keep possession, and that's not what an inverted fullback should be somebody that wins the ball back. I like Wan-Bissaka. I don't think he suits the fullback that Ten Hag wants. I think it baffles some of our fans why Ten Hag might want to buy a right back when Wan-Bissaka has been so good, and he has been good. But the way I look at it is there's different types of fullbacks, and I think Wan-Bissaka is a brilliant defensive right back who is improved massively when he overlaps. But that's not what Ten Hag wants. He wants them almost to become a midfielder. And I don't think that's what Wan-Bissaka is. A great show. I really think if people could hear themselves talking, they would never talk again. Get Glazers out to help United, nothing else, says Tracy. Marcus Rashford is selfish. Garnacho is selfish. Anthony is selfish. How does a striker solve problems when all others make selfish choices, says Ankit. You know the one player that I think would have made the biggest difference to the Ten Hag revolution and we didn't get him? For me, that one player would have to be... Apparently, we've had a Fabrizio Romano tweet, so let me just jump in and look at that. Fabrizio is on That's Football tomorrow as well. Man United are now exploring a move for Odysseas Vlachodimos, who's expected to leave Benfica. Top of Man United list as new backup keeper in case Dean Henderson... boring. Backup goalkeeper. I mean, can I be honest here? Leo, you're absolutely right. It's Frenkie de Jong. I'll talk about that goalkeeper thing in a minute. Boring. We had no right to get Frenkie de Jong. No right to get him. But if we'd got Frenkie de Jong last summer, we never would have got Mason Mount this summer. I think if you've got Frenkie de Jong and you've got Casemiro, you're a completely different team. The ability to win the ball back, transition, carry the ball, we would have been a different team. He was the one, AK. I can't sit here and say he's the one that got away because he didn't want to come. But I think it's always, when you're criticising Ten Hag, it's always important to think about this. Has he had everything he wanted? He wanted Harry Kane? No. He wanted Kim Min-jae? No. He wanted Frenkie de Jong? No. Even two of those players would transform this current team. He's got none of them. And they're all down the spine of the team. Christian Eriksen, I like him. Mason Mount, I like him. But Frenkie de Jong would have been next to Casemiro and that team would have been completely balanced in midfield with Bruno ahead of them. That would have been a midfield three that you can build a team around, and we would have been a lot better in possession. I think he's struggling, like a lot of people struggle at United, to build a team with at least one hand behind his back, and that obviously is a problem. So, look, if I'm being absolutely blunt, I could be talking worst case scenario here. I could be talking best case scenario. But I actually am, and we may never see this, by the way, but I'm almost at the point now where until we get the right owners, I don't think we can succeed as a football club anyway. So I'm sort of like, I'd love to see Ten Hag with Chelsea's resources or Man City's resources. I'd love to see that. That's what I want to get to. I want to get to the point where Ten Hag can say, get me that player, get me that player, get me that player. Because the one positive about this summer is he may not have got the first choice players, but he has got a pull. Onana wanted to come to us. Chelsea wanted him. He wanted to come to us. PSG and Bayern and Chelsea wanted Højlund. He wanted to come to us. Mount, whether you like it or not, Liverpool and Arsenal wanted him. He wanted to come to us. Amrabat is waiting to come to us. Pavard and Todibo wants to come to us. It's all because of Ten Hag. So, and that's with bloody Richard Arnold, John Murta and the Glazers. Imagine if you had Qatari ownership and the players that would want to play for Ten Hag, but then you've got the recruitment team that can get them. I think it would be, that's sort of what I'm hoping that we can get to, because I think that the proper glory days are gone at United until we get rid of the Glazers anyway. I think last season's as good as it gets. I don't think that title contenders is realistic. Funnily enough, Ricky messaged me today and said, United's best chance of silverware is probably the Champions League. He said, don't laugh, Mark. Listen up. In the Champions League, get a good group stage, get through, couple of knockout games that are okay. By April time, United might be a bit more settled. You've got 2 cup finals in a semi-final and then a final. You know, I'm not saying we're going to do it, but that's why I predicted United will do well in the Champions League, because Ten Hag is a very good cup manager. And, I mean, it's a stretch to say we're going to win the Champions League, of course, but I don't see us winning the league. I don't see us winning major trophies, really, under the current regime. It's staring us in the face. Why? Old Trafford's rusting. The infrastructure's terrible. The recruitment team's a joke. The CEO is clueless. The whole club is an absolute mess. And it's like cancer, isn't it? It spreads. It spreads. The mentality. Maybe the players are just a reflection of the club. We constantly ask this question: why are the players so demotivated, demoralised, and lacking energy? But are you not like that as a fan? I mean, I know footballers earn a lot of money, but are we not hypocrites as fans sometimes? We slag these players off for being demotivated and lacking energy, and yet we spend most of our time moaning and demotivated about the way the club is being run. These players go in there every day. You know, do you think Bruno Fernandes supported United as a kid? Probably not. But do you think Bruno Fernandes, in the short 15-year career he's got, wants to win things? Of course he does. And when you go into a workplace and you see a football club being run badly, it probably is quite demotivating. And I think it infects the whole club. And I think Ten Hag, after a year, is probably, realising that after a really good first year, how does he improve this year? And maybe he's a bit demotivated as well. Because I think he's definitely trying different things. Some of the stuff he's said in the last week is just completely unusual. Normally he's very honest. He's now talking about really good pre-season. Everything's going to be... I think, half expect him to start singing Bob Marley songs. Everything's going to be all right. Ten Hag has gone a little bit weird recently. And I think it's because he probably realises that progression is very, very difficult. So he's trying to, I don't know what he's trying. But it's going to be a very, very, very interesting next 12 days in the transfer window, because I think we need to get out there and do some business. And I'm sure we will do. What that business will be, I don't know. It's like different levels of panic, isn't it? Hopefully, it'll be Pavard and Todibo, Amrabat, and I'd like another midfielder. You know, would I be surprised if Amrabat was holding up a Liverpool shirt by Wednesday? No, I wouldn't. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Really enjoyed the show as usual. Trying to think what's going on tomorrow. So, obviously we'll be reacting to this Greenwood story whenever it comes out. 10 o'clock show as normal, 2 o'clock show, and then 7 o'clock show tomorrow night because I'm doing Crystal Palace Arsenal on That's Football at 8. Obviously, if anything breaks, I'm expecting over the next week that we start to actually react to some stuff. The summer hasn't gone the way I expected it to. I really expected, like, I remember doing that 11 o'clock show at night when we thought we were going to get sold. And I really thought it was going to be that sort of a summer, but it hasn't. But look, thanks everyone for all your comments. I love these sort of shows. Sunday night show was the origin of United Stand. And, you know, it's nice actually to just talk about the problems, potential problems, but also positives, solutions in a grown-up way with a community that get it. And I appreciate that. Oh, what do you think about the Fabrizio tweet? I really don't care. You know, I really do not care about United signing a backup goalkeeper. Onana's number one. I wasn't interested in Phil and Grant. I wasn't interested in Tom Heaton. I'm not interested in Dean Henderson. They're backup goalkeepers. Onana's number one. A backup goalkeeper is not going to solve our midfield issues, and it's not going to solve our creativity issues. It's not. I'm sorry. It might be a bit harsh. But with 12 days to go in the transfer window, I ain't getting excited about a backup goalkeeper. That's not the solution. It's not the problem. You know, all right, it means Dean Henderson can go on loan to Palace. Whoop-de-shit. I couldn't give a toss. Really couldn't. Onana's the number one. A backup goalkeeper doesn't solve our issues at the moment. By all means, go and do it, but it ain't headline news. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. You're legends, you know that. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Don't forget Manscaped. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. 20% off, free worldwide shipping. The code is TUS. You'll never find a better beard trimmer than this. It's revolutionary. Links in the description. Speak to you all in a bit.